decided that we would have fun if we just turn it over to other people to run the meeting, people that have, you know, various experiences with their bees doing different things and different topics. So we asked Ginger, who has bees, if she would do a presentation today on good water features for your bees. Because one of the things that helps your bees stay close to home is water. Bees will locate the closest water source to their hive. It's the heaviest thing they have to carry back. So they'll look for the closest water and then they'll stay with it. So if you have a close water source that occasionally dries up, they're sent off elsewhere, possibly to your neighbor's pool. So so we're doing water sources, and this is the yellow jacket time. So I have heard over in Portland right now, they're saying it's the worst yellow jacket year they've ever had. Jacqueline found like 5 in-ground yellow jacket nests within 50 yards of her hive. She's kind of stunned. She's been out there smashing them every day. So we're going to talk about yellow jackets. They're the only wasp that seriously predates on the bees. You know, they'll really nail them. The bald-faced hornets will, but they're not that common, and they don't usually like take out whole hives. But boy, in our communities, it's the yellow jacket. So, Ginger, take it away.
Thank you. So, welcome everybody. This is our bee club. Just a couple public service announcements. If you have a phone, please turn it on stun because you are being filmed. And that's the next question. If you don't want to be filmed, sorry, you're going to be filmed. And third thing is watch out for the cords, please. So, all right, welcome. And so, any new business to discuss?
Yellow jacket.
Yellow jacket?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other new business or old business to discuss?
Anybody have a particular bee issue? For those of you who have hives, you have any questions about what's going on with them right now, or we're all doing pretty good?
Really good. I have some ants going into my hazel box. Is that a problem with the honey?
No, I am.
Okay. Well, welcome. So I'm going to just jump right into the watering right now, as I just filmed at the same time. And welcome to our people at home. Thank you for watching, and we appreciate your supporting us. And so you can catch us all our meetings on our YouTube channel, Preservation Beekeeping. And then also please visit our preservationbeekeeping.com Facebook page and like and subscribe to it. And our preservationbeekeeping.com webpage. Beautiful. A lot of stuff on that. So also we do have our drawing for our basket. This is going to happen in October. And prices on tickets, $5 per ticket. Oh, $5 for 10 tickets. Okay, 1 for 1, $3 for 5, 10, 5 for 10. Okay, there we go. So, and the basket's right over there. Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's definitely full. Yeah. And a beehive. Oh, that's right. A berry. Yeah, catch that video on YouTube. That's putting it up in the tree. So, okay, watering. All right. So, as you know, this time of year it's dry. It's real dry. And so, sorry about this. Grab my phone. And thank you. Okay, so we, just like every other creature on the planet, they need water too, as well as all the yellow jackets and all the other things that fight for everything of the other resources the bees need. And so things we can do to provide water for them. And nearest the hive is good. All my bees have taken over my pool, so but if you have a pond that has some still water in it, that's That's really cool. And otherwise, you can provide sources for them. And this one here is my bee water that I have in my garden next to one of my hives. And what I did was simply get 2 plates from the Goodwill and then an old vase, another dollar store vase, right? And then I glued it with, ceramic glue. And here you go. You have a waterer. And then what you do then is you put little rocks on it in it so that they have something to land on, because you want to make sure they can't just land on water because they don't float very well. And so give them rocks, give them something so that they can just simply crawl down, grab some water, and not drown. So have to fill that every day and keep it clean. We'll get algae and muck in it, and other animals like it too. Frogs, flies, any other cool wasps and things. Everybody likes that. So. And then another one, since this is kind of dirty, I'm going to set it on the back down on the floor. Okay. And then another thing. Are you here? No, she isn't here. This was her idea, and so I kind of brought it because she had displayed it on a different day. And so it's just simply a small, just a little dish. Again, Goodwill, and then do things like put some charcoal in it. Because they need more than just water. They need minerals. They like getting their minerals and their salts. And charcoal has a lot of potassium in it. It's good for them. And then a little piece of wood, because who knows what grows on those and what they like, a rock, some moss, a little bit of organic stuff, and just fill that up enough to just so they can land on it and get some water. So it's real easy, real cheap. Just set it right there by your hive. They like it. And then another one, another idea that Susan told me about. Who was it who told you about this?
This is a guy in some foreign country. I don't know where he wrote a little book called My Happy Bees. And he had it translated into, I think he's from some Middle Eastern country. And his pen name is Peter Grayman. I am Grayman, so I write as Peter Grayman. So one of the things he does to make his bees happy is he shared this idea.
And this is a really cool one.
I love it.
And so this one here, you take just a regular household sponge, not those plastic stuff, but the regular cellulose stuff, a natural sponge. Sea sponge is best if you have one. And then, of course, wash all the icky stuff out of it. Make sure there's no soap in it, anything like that. And then cut it down. And you take, I don't drink beer. He used beer. I don't drink beer. Take a bottle of some sort, like I have in this case, this vinegar bottle. Take this piece of the sponge, fill it with water, or even your bee tea, and just put it in there. It absorbs the water. They can land here. They just grab some water off the sponge. You can attach it. It is slant. Yeah. It's just so cool. It's really neat. Okay. Keep it, watch every so often, make sure it needs filling, doesn't get a bunch of algae in it. So awesome idea. And so then I took that idea a little bit farther. Now this is a chick watering feeder. And I just took the sponges and cut them down to fit around the waterer because, a bee can't go down there either because he'd drown or she'd drown. And so she could do that same thing.
Oh, yeah, you could use a really big water.
Yeah.
And no drowning.
And no drowning. And no no rocks either. So I said, well, hey, cool.
And it all goes in the dishwasher.
It does. It does. So let's see. I think that was all my watering ideas. Do they tend to like moving water? I don't think they do. They like still water.
Well, who wants to move in water when you can?
They like anything they can get near. I have like little old fountain features that are pretty large, and some of them have a lot of water dripping and running, and some are still. And the bees are happy with all of it, provided they can get into a safe place to get the water. And another really good thing to dump into water is if you go to the beach, all of us eventually wind up at Astoria or something, find some of that like kelp that's on the shore And they really like the minerals in that, and just throw it into whatever watering stuff you're using. If you need to dry it, because you bring home a lot of it, just dry it out in your driveway, and you can just clip off pieces and throw them back into the water. And they go crazy for it. They just love all that mineralization in the kind of brackish water. Because you'll see bees at home drinking out of dog urine puddles and stuff like that. There's like something in, or I'll have some old rusty piece of something, and in a hole in it, is this rusty orange gunk, and it's totally lined with bees drinking from it. So I don't know what they're pulling off of it, but they know. So sometimes it's kind of handy to offer them other things than just plain, clean, pure water. Sample of them, see what they like.
And preferably no chlorine in your water.
Yeah.
Yeah. See if you can filter it, or at least remove chlorine. Put it in some jar or something and let it sit for at least 24 hours to get rid of the chlorine. It's not good for them. So, okay. Any questions on watering? Mm-hmm.
Plants are more, but they land on plants. So, and I also put sphagnum moss in it, which absorbs water, stays wet. Bees like to land on that and drink.
Yeah.
I've noticed that the small trees, I just keep on shaking it out because it's not living in the little areas. I have rocks in glass containers, and I put moss over it. They might really like drinking the water through the moss as opposed to sitting on the rock and drinking water. The other thing that's interesting to me with the aggressiveness of the yellow jackets, there's total peace at the watering station.
Mm-hmm.
No yellow jackets carting away bees. I just am fascinated by that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anybody else? Before we move on to speaking of yellow jackets. So, yeah, it is yellow jacket season. And so I thought I'd spend a minute telling you about, because we need to know a little bit more about what a yellow jacket is in order to understand, that way we can understand why they do what they do. And so I'm going to sit for this. There we go. So a yellow jacket, we've all seen them, right? In fact, I'm going to pass this little girl around in case there's yellow jackets and there's yellow jacket lookalikes. The umbrella hornets or are they wasps? Umbrella hornets or wasps?
Wasps.
They're wasps. They are a lookalike, and so if you see a nest like this hanging off your eaves, that's not a yellow jacket. Okay, yellow jackets nest low. Any other wasps nest high. So if you find a yellow jacket swarm in your eaves, it's not a yellow jacket. It's something else. Probably like an umbrella wasp or a bald-faced hornet trying to find a place to grow their nests. But a lot of those other kinds of wasps, like the umbrella wasps, they're gentle and they're nice. They don't compete for everything and stuff like that. And so another thing that yellow jackets is they are predators and they are carnivores. So they eat meat. So meat can consist of the roadkill. It can consist of like your bees. It can consist of other bugs that they go and they find. So therefore they are beneficial. Okay, they will eat pests in your garden. So they're not bad guys, really. They're beneficial insects that we need. And as they land on flowers to collect other bugs, they will also pollinate them too. Plus, if we didn't have the yellow jackets, we'd be knee deep in bad, yucky meat. So we need them. They're wonderful. They are beautiful. There's no doubt. They're pretty. And so I do, as long as I don't have a yellow jacket problem, I don't mind having any yellow jackets around. However, having said that, they are predators. And so to understand why they like to rob and work, over your bees needs to understand their life cycle. They are not a solitary insect, but they're not like the bees who have a hive mentality as such. They have the same life cycle as a bumblebee. So in the spring, you have, the solitary queen will come out from wherever she's nested all winter long, under leaves, in your wood pile, someplace low. And then she will come out, and then she'll start foraging. She'll start getting herself fattened up. And then she'll find a place to live, usually something like a mouse hole, or again, your wood pile, or a hole, just this one nice little place down inside your rosemary bush or whatever, someplace nice. And then she'll start laying eggs. And she'll start making workers, somebody akin to our maiden bees, okay? And she'll start making workers. And then they will go out at that point, and they will go out and forage and bring stuff back to her. And she then will continue, her only job now is to lay eggs. And that's all through the summer. And then come late summer, she's going to start laying drone eggs and start making males. And then she's also going to start laying queen eggs and making more queens at this point. And then fall comes, and the queens are older now, and the drones are ready to mate, so everybody mates. And then winter comes, the workers and the drones die off, the new queens go off to find a place to winter over. And that's their life cycle. So their life cycle is opposite the bees, who do all that in the spring, mate in the spring, grow, and then, so what they're doing is they are, at this time of year, they're starting to grow their drones and their queens, so they're hungry. And for some reason, this time of year, they also want sweets. They get a sweet tooth this time of year. So who has the sweets? The honeybees do. So this is now the time when they're going to start robbing for that. They're going to start competing for nectar on the flowers. And then that's when you're going to see a lot of your robbing and a lot of your let's fatten up for the winter by killing the bees while we're there and that kind of thing. So how do you fix that? Well, first of all, the best way is to get rid of your queens in the spring. They're in the spring, the yellow jackets, the only ones you see are your queens, and they're big. They're nice, big. They're not, happy to have you around them, but, because they're looking around. So how do you get rid of them? Well, there's several ways. You can get these kinds of traps at the store, and that's just, eliminate your queen. It goes like this, actually. You fill it up with water. It's got its bait in there, and then you hang it from your tree. When it's full, toss it, and hang a bunch of these around. Places like your wood piles, places like your wooded areas, places like where you have your big shrubs, like my big rosemary bush, places where you know that mice have been, because that's where they're going to be looking for their dens.
Huh? What's in the bottom of that? Smells like 5-deal roadkill. You might not want to hang it from your porch. Yeah. And what happened at our house is some kids were messing around in the porch. They messed up and knocked something off near the porch and went running. And then the wind came and blew the bag away. Bridget tore up the porch looking for the dead thing that she knew was underneath the porch. Oh, this kid's got a lot of trouble. So I'm just saying, be careful about where you hang it. Ew.
It is not pretty, no. And you can also get these kinds, the ones that you fill yourself. And I did have it full once, but anyway, so how do you catch them? Well, you put stuff like a can of tuna in there, something that's eventually going to be stinky, raw hamburger, they don't, yeah, they're attracted to things that stink, not are sweet. So, yeah, and then hang it away from your kitchen window. So then, yeah, because then when you're done in the spring, or when it's full, empty it, and either you're done with it if you want, or refill it and hang it again. And then, so prevention is your best cure for them. And then, how do you get rid of them if you have them? Well, I don't want to say spray them. Anybody have any natural ways to get rid of them? There you go,
So,
Debbie.
back in the day, when I was a professional gardener, and this is in North Carolina, where there's all kinds of stuff crawling around in the bushes. So I was always very careful before I went in to completely deconstruct a garden, which is part of my specialty. And so I'd watch, and I got real used to their flight pattern, because there's a certain way that they sort of come out of their nest. There's a pattern to it. And what I do is carefully remove usually the ivy around what I saw the first hole. I put a glass bowl over it. And then they beat themselves to death in there. But you keep on watching and you'll find the other hole. There's more than one hole, and it's not just two, sometimes it's more. So I cover that. I used to travel with nesting glass bowls, Pyrex. And I would and people were like, "Oh, you're going to spend all day at that?" I said, "I can leave. You with your yellow jackets." Go for it. And I said, "And I won't work in your garden if you spray, because it gets all over me and my equipment." So that was the one way I found. But what that does is it only kills the ones that it's an invisible barrier for them. They just beat themselves up on the glass. You don't get the queen. You don't get the developing brood. So all it does is bring down the population. The best thing is to catch those queens in the spring. Just litter and you could even make them look like decorations hanging from your trees, right? All those containers could be, messed around with. With a couple of wings on it, looks like a bee. Does anybody else have any other ideas about yellow jackets? Do you? But there's other holes. They're going to go, "Oh, that's what's happening."
There's a ghastly poison that you can use if you're really in a situation that's horrible for you, because sometimes people have so many on their property for a period of time it's even hard to come out and walk in your own yard. So what you can do is there's a poison that you can just put into a container of either tuna, or they love chicken meat, right? And it's the stuff that you use on your pets front line. So if you get any size tube of front line, and you just squirt the contents into that and hang it out somewhere in a bag like that, something that the yellow jackets can access, but your dogs and cats can't. So it's got to be hanging out somewhere in some kind of a sort of a caged situation. I am told by YouTube people that have tried it, and by my brother who tried it, that they will take out a hive in 24 hours. So, if it's something where you really need them gone, and for some people, they really, really do, and there are like multiple hives, that's a way to eradicate them. Now, I've heard that if you mix baking soda into that can, it'll do pretty much similar the same thing. But I don't know. I've not tried that. Thea.
Last year, I had a nest right near my garden gate, where I go in the backyard. And it was between the fence and the arborvitae. And I went out at night to try to find them, but I couldn't, because it was like deep in behind the shrubs. And plus, if you take a light with you at night, they'll see the light come out, so you can't do that. So I got a can of chicken and hung it, and I bought a cheap version, not Frontline, but a cheap version of it, like you can buy Redliners or whatever, just cheap, like a more generic.
Medication is fentanyl.
Yeah.
Right. And I squirted in there, mixed it in, and 3 days it was gone. The entire nest was gone. It was a very active nest. So apparently they eat the stuff, go back, either feed it to the other ones in there, or they die and get eaten by the other ones. I don't know what happens in the nest. But within 3 days they were gone, and this was a extremely active nest. I was watching it out of my window. The flies that land on it die too. Everything that lands on it and tries to eat them die, but it was up so no cats could get to it or anything else. So it was very effective. I don't like using poison, but I couldn't even go in and out of my gate because they were coming after me. And I just wanted to make one comment about the ecosystem thing and the hive mind and all that. So I have the paper one, the bald-faced hornet fake nest by my hives. And there's very few coming into my yard because they see that and think it's, predators of them. But I watched yellow jackets kill bees last year in my yard. And they bite their heads off and carry the rest of the body away. And they didn't do that until about midsummer when they started eating meat instead of pollinating. And so what I discovered this year is anytime, okay, so they're pretty and all that. Whenever I see a yellow jacket coming scouring around on the ground in my hive boxes, I grab Windex, and I spray them. And it kills them, or it repels them and they leave. I know that yellow jackets will come back if they see that this is good pickings in the yard. So they they talk to each other. They set it up so that, okay, this is a good spot to get food. It's not just one yellow jacket, a bunch will come back. They need, so I kill every one that I see. That doesn't mean that more aren't going to come. I know that, but I've kept the numbers down, and they're not robbing in my yard because they don't see it as being a good place to get food. And I don't know, if I had a nest in my yard, it would be problematic because they would be hunting around all around my beehives. But because they're not in my yard, when they come in, they're dispatched, and then I don't see a whole lot. Just my take on it.
Well, for years, I've been having a paper mache fake wasp nest. Because, as Thea said, wasps are really territorial, and they don't want to build another nest where the same other wasp is or where a predator wasp of theirs is. So if you hang what looks like the big bald-faced hornet nests, those big paper nests, they'll see that in the spring and go, okay, this area is taken. So every fall I take down my fake nest, and every spring I hang it in a different spot in the yard. And I haven't had make any nests in the yard since. And I too do the spray blaster. I go to a hardware store and get a really good spray bottle with a really strong blast. And I fill it probably a third full of dishwashing liquid. And then I fill the rest up with water and I, shake it and mix it. And when you blast them with that, it coats them with this viscousness, and they can't breathe. And they'll run and go step, 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 and they're done. So I just blast. And Jacqueline sits up by her nests with the ping pong paddle, and she smashes them. So we all have our kind of quick and dirty ways of getting rid of small numbers of them. But for me, the blasting, if there's a number of them on the ground, is, oh, there it is. There's my bald-faced hornet nest with the polymer clay hornets on it. So that's been real effective for me. And I too find that they don't show up until about this time of the year. This time of the year, everything's kind of in a bit of a frenzy as the season is going to start winding down. So good way to have it. If they're attacking your hive, if you see them and they're like a full-on attack, the best thing you can do is like throw a wet sheet over the hive just to knock the numbers down and confuse them. Seal up the hive. You know, it's too bad for the foragers that are out, but you've got to stop this. And then come evening, you can take the covering off. Hopefully the foragers will find their way back in. But if it's a hive that's really being taken down by them, the best thing you can do is move them to a friend's yard. Just get them out, because that hive has been identified as not doing well. Mikhail Teeley's a real famous apiculturist, and he maintains that yellow jackets are not a natural predator of the honeybees. He said they're an indicator species. So when the hives are not doing well, he said they know it. They're all chemically driven, and they get a scent from the hive that tells them that that'll be weak, and then they'll try to get through the door. And if they can breach the door, they'll mark the hive with a pheromone on their abdomen, the front of the hive, and then they'll go back and they'll tell their buddies where it is. If that hive's been marked, you know, by that bug, it's kind of known. So it's very helpful to wipe the front of the hive, maybe spray it or put some essential oil stuff on it to kind of mask some scenting and to get it out of your yard. But then the other thing is if the yellow jackets know that it's not a hive that's doing well, maybe you let the yellow jackets take that hive out. I don't know. I don't know.
If you're out in your yard and you see the yellow jackets doing their thing, and before you run for the sheet, what you've got plenty of in your yard is grass and branches and leaves and stuff. Before you go anywhere, stuff those entrances. I just wad up grass and I stuff it in there. I take evergreen, especially cedar, works really well because it's very aromatic. And I took tips off and I just placed it there just to confuse and any little hope, because I have some old equipment, and so I've got all these holes in the bees. Close them down in the winter and they open them up in the summer. But I stuff those. And then the running for the sheet thing. But you've got things available right in your yard to go ahead and stuff in there. And if you don't go running, get your gloves, but if you have to do. But if you're a little concerned about stuffing things in there, you can take the grass, wad it up, put it try to put it on the end of a stick, and just leave the stick there. It's okay. Or put a stick in there. Just close it up, and then work it out. Yeah.
Are your entrances the way
Not yet. Yeah, but I've got them down to this size right now. Period. There's no need for any kind of wide open door policy.
Any questions?
On a yellow jacket nest, do they like bees? Do they winter over, or do they die out?
Just the queen.
They die out.
Yeah, what they do is they go solitary for the winter time. So what they do is they'll go ahead and mate in the fall. You know, they'll create the drones and they'll do their mating thing with all the queens that they've also created. And then come fall, basically the queens will kill off everybody, including the old queen. Yeah, and so she'll go find some place under a nice little leaf pile or in your wood pile or some place just to go and winter. If it's a really good hard freeze winter, there's going to be they won't survive that. But for the majority in our weather around here in Washington, then yeah, they'll winter over and then their bodies slow way down. They create what's kind of a natural antifreeze. And then come spring, when it starts warming up again, they'll wake up and then the whole thing starts over again.
Okay, so my other question is, what would you recommend? Because I do have one. Problem is it's, okay, so here's the side of my garage. And then between the cement slab and the garage, there's a crack. Well, that's where the nest is. And I've tried chemicals. I put diatomaceous earth because that's supposed to get on them and slice them. I'm gonna try, I've got a picture of a trap that I have on the opposite side of my yard. I've got 300 or more dead ones in there. But still, I keep going back and I think it's gone, and then a couple of days later, there's a couple more. You know, so I don't know how deep it is. If there's a hole, I could try the bolt thing, I was gonna do that, and then try to see if there's somewhere along the other side that they're coming out. I've had people say, well, put gasoline in there. Well, you know, it's been hot, I don't want to put gasoline in there. Any recommendations on any of that? No. But I have animals.
You can hang it outside on a wall. You
Right
can,
above the, maybe right
Yeah,
above.
sure. Yeah. I mean, I would probably get like a wire mesh, like a, you know, with holes in it that yellow jackets could go through, but a dog could
Take
eat
it
through.
back into the nest.
Yeah, and I would just take this whole wire mesh and tie it all up like in a little ball and hang it on the side of your garage or something, right till it's right above the
Maybe even what
nest.
about the other trap I could do there, because they're constantly around there. when
Sure.
it's light.
Sure.
And then that way, if you're actually, I want to get rid of the queen.
Yeah.
And I can't get, I mean, I could kill thousands of these things, but
She
they're
keeps
producing
laying.
more than what I'm able to kill.
Yeah.
That's the only one I see of, although I got stung a couple times. It hurts.
Try the fipronil. Try the fipronil.
I'll try that.
Hole that the yellow jackets took over right next to my front door, and I got a gallon of soap and poured it in there, and then I stuck the hose in. They went away.
I'm thinking about doing that too, but the problem is that you think that these chemical sprays because it's shoes.
Yeah.
How deep is this thing? Yeah. And there, not that I would pile this one amount of business, so maybe there's one over there too. I don't know, but it's done.
Many people are finding just, you know, multiple
This is bad this year.
because we had, you know, 3 miles. And so a lot of the queens made it. And that's, you know, that's where the problem is. I hung out traps this spring with the pheromone attractant, and I didn't catch a darn thing. So next year I'm going to hang traps again, and I'm going to hang some traps with some like bacon and stuff in it, and some traps with some like Coca-Cola. They're supposed to really like Coke in it, so I can get the sweet and the protein. And I also find that when I do see queens around, I tend to see them in the spring at my watering station.
Yeah.
So I think that
Slow moving.
I would, you know, I usually smush them at my watering stations if I can get my hands on them, but at the watering site, they need water just like bees do. So they'll come to the watering site, and if you have your, you know, your bait there, you'll see them there and they'll see it there. So.
Is there any animal like chickens or ducks or anything that eat those?
Yeah, many chickens and ducks eat them. Chickens, sometimes a big mob of chickens will stand around outside of a hole and just nail them. But you just have to be flat lucky
They
to,
also like bees.
yeah, they also eat bees. But, yeah, so, and the other thing that eats yellow jackets are bald-faced hornets. It's bald-faced hornets' favorite food is yellow jackets. That's why if you hang up a big fake nest, the yellow jacket goes, that's my enemy, that's my predator. The wasps, most wasps only nest within 1,000 feet of where they forage. So wherever they're coming from, they're not coming from that far. They don't go the 2 or 3 miles that our honeybees do. So they're pretty close if you see them. Thea.
The Susan's very decorative. You can take a paper bag. Doesn't have to have the wasp on the outside. Looks like a nest. Hang it up. Yellow jacket, see it go.
And the color, so that seems to do it. So if you don't have hives right now, you know, this won't seem like much of a big deal, but if you do hives, this is going to be something that comes up, man, every summer. You will talk about it, you will think about it, you will plan for it, and you'll pull your hair out about it. And thank you for your tip that actually our entrance was breached, so we have to go smaller.
One of the things I learned from YouTube about the watering stations is that if there are any wild bees in your area, or like in my case, there's honeybees. I live in a neighborhood and I don't have a hive. They will go to the water hole and straight back to the hive. So if you're trying to track them to see where it is, you wait at the water hole and watch where they go to get the idea. And they will pick as close to themselves as possible because, like Susan said, water is heavy.
Anybody else?
Flooring area of a barn, and I watched them come and go. I didn't have bees. I just let them live their life, and they didn't really look like yellow jackets, but they don't seem to be there this year at all. And I've been very observant of that. So they don't then repopulate the same
Not
area.
the same hive, they usually don't. They usually don't. And unlike bumblebees, bumblebees have to take whatever hole they can find in the ground for the ground nesting bumbles. They can't excavate, but the yellow jackets will. They'll move into a hole and then they'll just start digging it out. And, it can be large. There can be thousands. And if you live in a warmer climate, and, all of our climates up here in the Northwest are warming, then they can overwinter. Amounts of them will overwinter. And in that case, you end up with hives like in Southern California that literally have filled entire rooms in abandoned houses. It is really scary. So here, we're blessed that they're kind of taken out during the winter so far, and they don't normally come back. So those guys in the ground should be gone, but you've still got a significant amount of months to go. And most people won't recognize them as being yellow jackets. If you don't have bees, you may even not recognize them all as being yellow jackets because they're small, they fly around, they land on plants, and it's like, oh, they're bees. And it's like, no, once you have bees, you really clearly know the difference between a bee and a not bee. And but anyhow, their yellow jackets are dangerous, and the thing about them too is that a lot of times on the news you will hear that people were stung or horses were killed by bees, another bee attack, and if you read it closer, you know darn well those weren't bees. Those were yellow jackets, but we lump all those flying, stinging things into one category as bees. So there's a lot of negative press that honeybees have to take. Honeybees have a natural behavior in that if their hive is disturbed, they send out a certain number of guard bees, and the guard bees will come out and defend the hive. Wasps have a different natural history. When their hive is disturbed, the entire hive goes on alert and comes out. So it's not like dealing with 8 or 10 honeybees flapping around your face. It's dealing with 10,000 wasps who will also follow you further than honeybees. And if you go into the water to get away from them, they will wait for a half hour above the water to get you when you come up. They're really fierce. So when people have them in backyards, I just caution. If you've got a dog or you've got kids, I would destroy the hive. Yeah, they don't have a barbed stinger where it comes out once they sting you. They can and they bite. So they can be biting you while they're stinging you, and they hang on, and it's.
And they also use the pheromones. So if you get bit by Charlie, all his brothers and sister, well, whatever,
Earmarked.
You're earmarked. So one of the things about certain kinds of stings, if you can, is you cover it and get the heck out of there. But try it because you're marked. And then go wash yourself. And if you need to go back and pick up your tools and stuff.
That's a tube run and left on. Yeah, exactly. So,
Somebody needs to talk about
yes, you talk about it.
No, I don't, you're going. I can't.
Oh, okay. Tom Seeley is, he's like Mr. Bee. I mean, he's like the world-renowned bee person in the world today. He's out of Cornell University, and he is actually coming to Portland Urban Beekeepers on September 15th. And it's going to be like a whole day of learning from Tom. And I think it's like $40 for the day. And if you're into bees at all, man, I would encourage you to go. It's the opportunity of a lifetime to see him. So all you have to do is go on to the Facebook page, Portland Urban Beekeepers, the PUB page, and it's got a big advertisement for it, and you can sign up right there. I think that's going to be just a remarkable event, So, yeah.
He wrote Honeybee, one of his most popular books is Honeybee Democracy. And his latest book is Bee Hunting?
Hunting the Wild Bee, and it's about tracking bees from watering stations and finding wild hives so you can observe those hives or hang your swarm traps out by them or something like that.
That was back when I first started beekeeping in Nashville. So a lot of times with the regular bee associations, or back in the day, you'd go and there was nothing but old men. About maybe their wives now and then, but it was just a bunch of old men. And so I was real quiet, which is, as you all know, it's hard for me. And I went for several months in a row just to watch, listen, see who's who, and all that kind of thing. So I finally approached one of the old men about working with them. I found that they lived near me. And so I worked with them and stuff. And then I felt more comfortable to ask questions and things. And during the meeting, or before the meeting, they all sort of sit around and talk bee stories. And I said, so they were talking about hunting bees. And I said, well, how do you do that? Well, we get our fishing equipment, not equipment, we get our fishing stuff. And maybe pack a lunch. And we go down to the river. Okay. And we fish. And it's real slow, the story, and it goes on and on. Then we see the bees at the water, and we follow the bees. And what they do each time is they follow bees for as long as they're willing to do that, and they mark the trees. Next time they go there, and then watch the bees to go to the next thing. And that's how they would find bee trees. Water. Fishing.
So swarming is pretty much over for this year. All the calls that we're getting now are pretty much for yellow jacket hornet nests in people's houses and yards and barns. And our bees now will be beginning to lay, or maybe it's still a little early, but soon, they're winter bees. The summer bees will be dying off, and a lot of us are going to be seeing, come September, massive shrinking of most hives. The summer foragers are going out, they're coming home, they're dying, they're not being replaced. The winter bees are the house bees, they're staying inside. And you'll start to find 50, 80, 100, 200 dead bees in front of your hive every night. And you're thinking, oh my God, we've had it. No, they really downsize during the winter time. And now is when they're really wanting to beef up the honey stores, because all summer, all that honey and nectar that was coming in was all kind of going out to swarms. We get a lot of honey and nectar, poof, a swarm goes out. We get a lot of honey and nectar, suddenly 10 days later, we're sending out 3 caste swarms. So by the time that the new queens, take establishment of the old hive and the new swarms get kind of set up, then, like around now, it's real serious honey collection. But we're going into our dearth. It's been real hot. And when it gets really hot, the nectar in the flowers dries up. The flowers pull it in because the plants, to survive the heat, need all the moisture they can get. So the pollen gets lousy, it's not worth grabbing, and the nectar literally isn't even there. So I've been watering heavily. I have a lot of bee forage in my yard, and I just keep watering because that way, at least in my yard, you know, at least the nectaries in my yard are coming on. People are starting to see bees show up at hummingbird feeders, like in a frenzy. So they're desperate for food right now. And in our area, what's going to be coming on in another few weeks, and it will last all the way through fall, is ivy. But if you look in that hillside up above the library, all along the hillside, that tracks that canal that runs from Lacamas Lake to the mill. If you look at all the trees that grow up alongside it, they're ivy towers, floor to top. Many of the trees are dead. They're just massive ivy towers. Ivy blooms like heck come fall. You almost don't notice it because it's little white blooms and they bloom almost under the leaves. But if you go in there in the fall and you look close at those trees, there's bees everywhere. So that's the huge honey collection that I know that even if my forage dries out and even if it's hotter than heck, the ivy will come on late. I can always trust that here. And my bees, sometimes I've looked in the hives at the end of August and gone, oh my God, they are not storing anything. Oh my God. And then all of a sudden I look in at the end of September and they're packed. So they've got no more to do now. They're not shipping out swarms. All their wax is built. Now they can just focus on bringing in every bit of nectar that they can get. And they're cranky. They're very cranky right now.
And the drones were really early this year.
Yeah.
July, the drones were like, see ya.
Yeah, my drones. I have a few hives that have a few drones left, but usually in most hives right now, the drones are gone, which would mean that it would be very hard to get queens mated. If you've lost a queen and you need to put one in a hive, if you end up with a virgin queen that you bought from someone, it's hard to know whether they could actually be mated now because the drones have been thrown out of the hives. So it's a really, this is like a switchover time in the year that's really stressful for the bees. They're real protective of their honey right now. They may have let you go in earlier and pull out a frame, and now it's like, get your hands off my honey. So, they're really storing. And the thing about ivy honey, especially for hives like your hive, is Kathy and her husband have a flow hive, and ivy honey crystallizes like that. It begins crystallizing, I've read, in the honey tummy of the bee, even as she's bringing it back. So it gets really hard, really fast. And in my hives, the way I recognize it is I'll have these big, fat, packed, sealed combs, and the honey is rock hard. It looks like little candy white pellets. And you go, oh, is this larva? And then you taste it, and it's crunchy, and it melts in your mouth, and it's ivy honey. So I don't know how ivy honey would do in a flow hive. I mean, hopefully they're bringing in some other stuff that's keeping the crystallization from there. But here's the other bonus on top of that. You can't hardly collect that honey because it's all pellets. But if you bring it in and you pull the wax cappings off and you put it in some kind of a heat chamber where it doesn't get above like 85 degrees, and you leave it in there for days, the ivy will begin to melt. And ivy honey is the most like medicinal medicine, honey medicine on earth. And the reason that it's not sold for huge amounts of money like Manuka honey is because it crystallizes, and it isn't convenient for beekeepers to find a way to really process that. But in your own hives, if you pull a frame of that out now and then, and even if all you do is pop out all those pellets and keep them in a jar, man, when you have a cold or something coming on or a cough, that's the most medicinal, powerful honey that you could ever use. So that's the pros and the cons of ivy. The pros, it's super medicinal, and by God, there's a lot of it. The cons, it crystallizes really, really quick, if that matters to you. So that's what the bees are going to be doing now, just hanging on. And we have our fall flowers coming in now. I've got asters to bloom. I've still got goldenrod to bloom, and I've got all of my autumn sedum still to go. What about you, Jennifer? You plant like heck. What do you?
I do love Veronica. My cardoon is insane
Yeah.
right now. And Agastache. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, those are probably the most popular plants.
We have huge areas of ivy. I mean, of the 3 acres of our property, probably an acre of it is ivy. And but the thing about the flow frames is that in the Northwest, everything I've read says you need 2 brood boxes to survive the winter. And so that means they spend all their time in those 2 brood boxes their first year. And so you typically won't, I mean, they're up there walking around, looking at it, inspecting it, you'll see one of them get their head down in there and get her head down in there. But we've never got any honey out of because they're too busy filling out the 2 brood boxes. Now, if they survive the winter, then next year we would expect them to go up into the flow frame. That's typically what happens with the flow hives anyway, is that you don't get honey the first year.
Typically, I don't harvest the first year. I just, yeah.
Particularly here, because you gotta have a single, 10-inch or a single large, 10-frame box is not enough to survive the winter here. Maybe down in California, Texas.
Actually, here, you're finding that if you insulate the hell out of those boxes, they do really well.
I meant to do that last year, but when I went out to measure the boxes, to put some insulation around them, they were gone.
Yeah, do it this year. Tom Seeley is recommending 1 big deep for the hive. That's their brood box, and that's where they store honey in the back. And that a smaller hive like that has a better chance of survival. And then you would put your honey supers on top of that.
My 2 8-frame brood boxes are pretty much packed up and filled in. I mean, out on the edges, they're, they're 3/4, that kind of stuff, but there's
We still have some foraging to do.
Well, we got all the foraging of the ivy to come on. My bees have very little honey stored right now. I poked under a couple of my skeps, and they're full of bees, and they're bringing in pollen all the time, but I'm not seeing much capped honey yet. But I know, because I've watched them in previous years, that that's all still going to be coming on. So you're going to see a lot of dead bees. Ivy is coming on. This is good news. Keep your water up for them, because they start using it again toward the fall for some reason. I don't know why. And be thinking about insulation, because we're real big on that here. I mean, whatever hive style you get, you're going to have to insulate it. None of them now are well insulated except for the polystyrene plastic hive boxes. The insulation value on them is great, and skeps are great. But in terms of hives that you would buy, none of the people are making them as thick as they need to be, except one fellow in Colorado who makes and sells hives that he calls a bee tree hive. And it has taken all of our suggestions seriously. He's got an echo floor in the bottom with the box that you pull out. He has like super thick insulation wood all the way around the hive. So that hive is like really beefy and set up to go. And I think more and more I'm starting to read on big bee forums, people talking about the problems with these thin-walled hives. It just doesn't work. So I'm thinking that more and more we're going to be seeing some more innovative hive styles come out. The hive that comes with that frame box, that gift box, it's super insulated. The hive you see hanging up there has a column inside that's round and wood, and that's where the bees live. And all around the side, all those inches of box are all packed with straw.
You can check that out on
Yeah, it's all stuffed and packed and gorgeous. So, yeah. So
Say about insulating around.
what? Oh, and when we insulate, we're big believers in insulating year round because the bees actually need the insulation more in the summer. It really helps them with their honey production. They have to evaporate 75% of the water out of the nectar that they get to make honey. So they're constantly moving air through the hive and needing the temperatures to be a certain type. So if you have it heavily insulated in the summer, that allows the bees to be more efficient. And speaking of heating and cooling the hives, I've been able to watch that process now in my observation hive. So you see the little fanners on the front of the little entry boards. Bees fan. They move air into the hives and they pull air and they push air out of the hives. So I've always watched them on the landing boards coming and going, but I've always wondered what they do inside the hives when that's going on. Take care. So I was looking in my observation hive the other night on a really hot night, and in my mind's eye, what I envisioned was very precise little columns and trails of bees all fanning the same way and other bees keeping out of their way. It's not like that at all. It amazes me what goes on in a hive. It must look like what goes on in a body where everything is just kind of colliding. So the fanners, you can recognize them in the observation hive by they walk around with their wings out like this, and they're walking around in the hive, and as soon as they can find a spot that doesn't have a bee in it, they go and they fan. And then bees will come tromping over them and knock them over, and they'll move out of the way, and they'll walk around the hive looking, they'll find a spot till the next bees knock into them. And all over the hive, you'll see all these bees looking around, walking, stopping. Some of them line up along a wall, and there'll be all of them. And you can just see the wings just fluttering so fast. And it's like, oh, that's how they do it. So they're just stuck all over the hive, moving the air out. And then the ones around the edges, there's clumps of them that are more fanning, and they go on like that for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, fanning. And it's like, that's got to move a lot of air in that hive, but it's not precise. It's like they're fanning wherever they can find a spot because the hive is so packed full of bees. And sometimes they're just fanning and then bees will hit their wings and you can see the wings get like tattered from all the hits on the bees as they're trying to fan. But that's how that fanning process happens. Bees wandering the hive with their wings out and looking for a spot to flap. So
part of the insulation thing to wrap your mind around has to do with burning calories. If they are spending a lot of energy cooling or heating the hive, they are eating more food to replenish those calories being burned. So, and that's stressful. This comes down to one of those stressors. So, and that also is that why we want to insulate hives is to bring down the stress and not for them to burn off their calories so fast. And we understand that they don't ball up, cluster so much in the trees in the winter. They're a little more active and not all in the stress.
when bees need to spend energy, energy to bees means honey. So we don't want them eating their honey just to warm up the hive. Guys, thank you for coming. Oh, awesome.
They need to fill in. I tell you what, you put your name and telephone number on one of them.
We'll
We'll fill the rest
out.
of them out. And then we're going to give you a copy.
You didn't mention the movie. The movie that Susan is in, who has a small part, is Leave No Trace. The movie is Leave No Trace, and it is filmed in the Portland area. And Susan is the beekeeper in the movie, and it is in theaters now. It's a real movie, so check it out.
And the reviews are out of this world.
Really? I know, I loved
Rotten
it.
Tomatoes went sky high, and,
Oh,
and it's almost. She's a star.
yes, it's got the bun.
Bye-bye, guys.
Yes. Oh, and preservation beekeeping?
Is listed
Is
in
listed?
the movie, yeah. And what's kind of been interesting to me that I never expected was on Facebook, people are finding me who I haven't. I don't remember, like somebody from Clayton Environmental, where I was a technical editor 20 years ago. So you probably don't remember me, but I was watching this movie, and by God, you showed up on screen, and I jumped up and yelled. And so like people I'm getting mail from people who said, "Oh my God, I went to a movie and you were in it." Well, yes, it's my second career acting that my movie part, but preservation beekeeping does get mentioned in the thank you section for the credits. So,
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get more press from that. Who knows? So that's exciting. Well, we're kind of done a little early today, which is fine. Does anybody have anything you want to bring up as topic since we've got the room? Well, move forward, join the gang.
I just heard that you're going to do skip class.
Yes.
Can you give us some information?
Yeah, it's actually, my SCEP classes are now posted on the website. I'm doing one in October, one in November, and one in February. And they're, it's 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, plus Friday night, like from 7 to 9, just to get together and, get familiar with the process, and 2 days of weaving. And it's $300, but for the $300, 100 of that is in materials costs, and that doesn't include the grass. What it includes is the metal frame to weave on, and the FIDS, that's the weaving tool that I order for you, and it's the binding cane, the bamboo reed that we coil with. And then the people in the class will either need to collect their own grass, and you can contact Debbie about that, or you can buy grass from Deb. Deb is collecting, drying, and making the sheaves, and you can buy them for, is it $15 a sheaf? And you'll probably need 3 to 4 of them to make a scalp. So yeah, so the initial outlay is like big, but when you're done, then you can just go on making those hives for free. You get to keep the frame, you get to keep the FIDS, you know where to get the bamboo, you know how to do the grass, and all of a sudden you're home free making hives. So yeah, so that's how we're going to do that, and that's where the dates are. And I will bring a flyer next time with all that information on, and be able to pass it out, and you can start kind of pondering that. So, and we're going to hold them at Pixie's house, the weaving classes, be indoors, and yeah.
With the grasses, you can call me and make arrangements to come over and pick your own. I'll show you how to, I've got the tool for cutting it. And if you want one of your very own, I can sell them to you. They're like $4, $5 a piece. And I can show you how I cut, how I dry them, and how I bind them off. Yeah.
And then clean them.
And clean them, yeah. I'm fastidious about the cleaning, like 3 times I clean them. So there's my information. I'm in Woodland, Washington. I'm actually right between La Center and Woodland, about 10 minutes off the highway.
Are you by Cedar Creek Road?
I'm by.
You're not far from him. I'm by
I know.
Annie Farm.
Yeah, I'm right at the intersection of Northeast 389th and Jenny Creek Road.
Jenny Creek Road, okay.
We're practically neighbors.
Yeah.
It's just,
And how far in advance do we need to get a hold of you to get the grass?
you know, I'm there most of the time. You know, I'm just retired and all I'm doing is cutting grass
I
and,
mean, if we want to do this, say, the first class, when would we?
oh, you need to cut grass now. The grass, as a matter of fact, is a little bit further than I'd like it. But I can show you how to cut grass. And if you've got places that you know where to go to get grass that is more shaded, you'll get grass that's got a little more green on it. Just has to dry up, just a little bit more supple.
Insofar as the classes, I mean, I've advertised them way out, you know, September, November, and February. But I've already got like 5 students for the first one. So I think, and I haven't put it out there except just to a couple of bee websites, and
Is it on the preservation?
it's on the preservation beekeeping site.
It just went.
I just put it up within the last week, so it's under the
But
classes.
you don't have anybody set up for the November class yet?
Nope. So yeah, just let me know, you know, if you need me to like be holding a space. So that'll be good. Okay.
Yeah, okay. And I'll contact you after because you don't live more than 5 months.
Get my car before you leave. And yeah, because we're really down the road from
Yeah,
each
I
other.
can just call you and come by.
Yeah.
Sure. And Terry, your bees are doing good, huh?
They're not afraid, they're happy bees, they are hungry bees.
Yeah.
And they're eating about 4 honey every 2 weeks.
Okay. Well.
And every time I go, the place is empty.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even see them around, maybe you see them where they're happy.
You don't ever know.
Thanks for watching.